Hello, welcome back to part two of Good Friday. So, we just talked about Jesus got through his first couple trials. Now he's sent to Pontius Pilate. When he goes to Pontius Pilate, the Jewish leaders are like, he's blasphemy. He says he's the king of the Jews. We don't have a king. He's all this. And Jesus just stays silent this whole time. Won't talk, won't defend himself against anybody, even when he's asked to. And so Pilate finally looks at him and says, "Are you the king of the Jews?" And he says, "You said it." And so Pilate finally realizes that he's actually from Galilee, which is the northern region of Israel. And when he finds that out, he says, well, he technically belongs to King Herod's jurisdiction. So he sends him to Herod because Herod's there for the Passover. And Herod's happy because he's always wanted to talk to Jesus to question him. And so he finally gets to question him. And he's asking him these questions, and Jesus is not saying anything. And he's like, well, I don't find anything against him. So we're sending him back to Pilate. So he gets marched all the way back to Pilate. And Pilate's like, well, what am I supposed to do? So he questions Jesus some more, and he's like, I can't find anything wrong with him. So he asked the Jews, what do you want me to do? We want you to kill him, they said. We want you to crucify him. He says he's the king. He's not. He says he's the Son of God. He's not. And Pilate's like, I can't do this. He's not guilty. And they said, well, if you don't do this, then you're no friend of Caesar. And we're going to let Caesar know that you're letting a king or a person that says he's a king live. Well, Pilate gets worried about this. So what he does is, well, I'll punish him by having him whipped. Now, a Roman whipping was not a pretty sight. If we ever watch The Passion of the Christ, they're very close to what that actually was like. The flagellum was the whip they would use. And it's like a cat of nine tails, and there's a stick with nine leather straps to it, and at the end of each strap there is metal, broken metal, bones, rocks, anything that is sharp they could use to cut. And what would happen is the first couple hits would break the back open, and then they would keep hitting and hitting until it was bad. You literally, some scholars actually said that this kind of whipping, you could hardly see the person's insides, their intestines, their everything. It was that bad. And the actor that played the Passion of the Christ, there was an accident on the scene where they gave him this prosthetic to protect himself from the whipping, and either he accidentally moved or the person that whipped him accidentally moved and hit him, and it made a cut 11 inches deep, I think 11 inches wide, that they needed like 13 stitches to close up. And the guy said that if he got hit one or two more times, he'd probably be dead because it was that bad, that painful. And it kind of opened up the eyes of what did Jesus really go through during that time. So then he gives him back to his soldiers, Pilate does, and his soldiers make him a crown of thorns. And this isn't some pretty little thing. They put it on you, and they put it on hard. That's cutting into his scalp. And a lot of medical scientists say the scalp, if it's cut, will bleed the most, just because of where it is and the blood vessels inside of it. So he is bleeding a lot. They put a purple robe on his freshly cut up back and bow to him and hit him and spit on him and blindfold him and say, well, if you're God, prophesy who hit you. And they gave him a terrible beating and stuff. Then Pilate, seeing this, takes him back in front of the Jews and say, I find him innocent. I'm going to let him go. No. And the Jews like, no, crucify him. And he's like, I have find no fault. Well, Pilate has a tradition where he picks two criminals and he gives the Jews a choice who to free. Now, he had a criminal that he was planning on executing called Barabbas. And Barabbas was a vile person. He was a murderer, probably a zealot, in other words, a terrorist, who was after the Romans and also attacked Jews. And so he brought Barabbas out and he says, okay, choose Jesus, your king, or Barabbas, this criminal. And they said, free Barabbas, crucify Jesus. And he says, but I find no fault in Jesus. And they're like, we don't care. If you don't do it, we will revolt. And Pilate's on the last nerve of the Caesar. So if there was a revolt, it was going to be his head. So he asked for a basin of water. And he said, if you want me to crucify, I will, but it's on you guys. His blood is on your guys' head. And they said, yes. So he washed his hands, says, I wash my hands of this innocent man. Just the fact that Jesus was willing to do all that, just that, it puts in perspective all the sins that I've ever done, and how could I let somebody like that do that for me? I'll come back soon on the hardest part, his trip to Calvary and his death. Have a great day. See you soon.